Hey, I'm Aaron.
I'm Chris,
And I'm Evan.
and this is the Three Chords Cast. Hey everybody, I'm Chris, and on this episode of the Three Chords Cast, we're answering the question, what if our idea of success is upside down? Today we'll explore cultural views of success, God's view of success versus the world's view of success, how to recalibrate our definition of success, and offering some encouragement and challenging all of us to redefine success in our lives.
Yes, so welcome to the Three Chords Cast. Today we are talking about success, and as Chris just mentioned, our idea of success. What do you think it is? Where do you think it is? How do you think it is? What do you think it's going to mean to you today versus 10 years from now? Most importantly, what we're going to talk about today is what if our idea of success is completely upside down?
So I think that the question then is, what is the definition of success? So I think, I guess we answer this, like, how would the world define success? I don't know, what are you guys' thoughts? What is the world's definition of what it means to be successful?
So I think the majority of the world uses comparison. I know that I do it personally. I think that a lot of us, especially with the existence of social media, we have the ability to compare ourselves to a wider range of people too, and to see what is, quote, out there or available. I know that I fall victim to it, and I think a lot of other people do as well. You know, someone next to you has a nicer car, has a nicer house. Maybe someone in your job has a better title or makes more money. And so then, you know, we're continually resetting what that bar is that we're trying to achieve, like whatever success is. So then it begs the question, like, will you ever actually achieve success, or are you going to be constantly chasing it?
Yeah, I think it's this constant chase after number go up, right?
Yeah.
Unless maybe you're like speed running, in which case number go down. What is more successful, you know? But yeah, do I make more money? Do I have nicer car or more than one vehicle, right? Do I have a bigger house, more square footage? Do I have a nicer family? And those are easy. It's easy because those things are like visual and tangible, right? And just like, I like that you're bringing out that by nature we as people live in the world of comparisons.
Mhm.
Like, I don't have this person has that. Well, they have a nicer thing, and we define that. I think, Chris, you even mentioned something about, so like, touched on social media is a more successful channel, more successful because it has higher subscribers, views, comments, etc., versus another person's.
Yeah, and I think if you take a lot of the tangible things about success and you get them all convoluted, especially when it's working against you. When you talk about comparison, usually when you use comparison, I feel like 99% of the time like you said, Evan, raising the bar higher, or it's the next number up, or whatever's the next thing for you. That idea of success will then constantly be working against you. And when it works against you in the tangible things, then you start to get into this intangible mindset with success, where it becomes more emotional, it becomes more mental. It drives your attitude, it can drive then your actions, to the point where is your idea of success to such a degree where, hey, I'm not as successful as so and so, or I'm not as successful as this, or I could be more than that if I had. When you start getting into the ifs of what success looks like for you, or what you don't have versus somebody else, then you're getting into, will that attitude drive my actions to do something to the detriment of someone else? so that I can be successful. I think when we think in the simplest terms of how the world looks at success in all these ways, the real temptation of what it can boil down to is your idea of success could cause you to create an action that might make you more successful, but what are you burning? What are you leaving behind you?
Yeah.
What are you destroying in the background to get you there?
Leaving in the
Because
wake.
that's rampant in culture today. That's not even like something personally to think about. You could see it just by opening up any kind of news feed, any sort of social media app. It's just there.
Yeah. And I think, like, I mean, when we think about the world's definition of success, we're trying to think in terms too, okay, so then what is wrong with it, as opposed to God's view of what is success. And I think you hit on it there, like in our culture, specifically Western culture, it's, man, if I can tear down this person to elevate myself, I'm going to do it because I want to be elevated. I want to be seen as better, as bigger, as more important, more influential, more successful.
I was just talking to my wife about this. I saw this Airbnb commercial, and there's Airbnb commercials recently where they like kind of try to show you, hey, if you're gonna vacation like out on the beach, shouldn't you like be out on the beach and not spend 80% of your time dealing with a hotel? And it like shows you all the little things that are wrong with a hotel that people are like, oh yeah, that ruins my trip every time. Why don't you just stay in an Airbnb when you can like live right there, be all right there? Which, that what we just talked about, that's something that could be even just slightly damaging to the reputations of some other business or thing just to make you look more successful. And I kid you not, I remember after seeing that so many times, just this last week, I can't remember the name of it. That must not have been that successful for me. I don't remember the name of this hotel. I don't remember the name of the brand. But all I know is they kind of rolled it back the other way. That's like, why stay in the jungle out there? And it's like somebody opens a door, like they're going somewhere, and then all of a sudden they see, oh my gosh, like something's about to attack me, and they close the door. Anyway, they show off, why deal with all of that staying at your Airbnb when you could live in the comfort of, and it's got the luxury meals, the this, that, and the other. It's marketing and advertising today just defaults to, who do I have to get out of my way to be number one? And it's just, I mean, that's the world's view. Do what you got to do to be the number one. And obviously, I think we'll, really dive into this in a minute. Like, that's just not how God sees success. And that's not how we should see it either, especially amongst each other as friends. We wouldn't want to be doing that to one another just to say that we have an iota more of success than anyone around us.
I think it's really interesting too, if you think of the idea of tearing someone down to make yourself look more successful. If you were to set the bar, you draw a bar, right? Or draw a line across a piece of paper and say like, here's where you and your colleague are, or here's where you and your friend are, a level of success, right? And you say that like, okay, so you breaking apart that relationship or you tearing that person down, no one is moving beyond that line of success. So you're staying right where you're at. And then the difference between you two makes you look more successful, but you're not actually more successful. So I think a lot of the very successful people in the world are actually working with other people to lift them up, which then also lifts themselves up as well. Again, that relates back to, God's view of success and us as Christians working to disciple others. Like, we're not just trying to be like the number one disciple maker, just trying to beat everyone else and say like, oh, you're bad at discipling, so you shouldn't do it, like tearing each other down. But, we're working together as the capital C church to grow the family of faith, right? Appreciate that analogy with the Airbnb commercial too. I didn't even think about that. Marketing is a very like high level example of what we deal with a lot internally with measuring success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely like this idea of like where is your value at? And Chris, you had mentioned earlier a few of these verses, and the thing that you see in Matthew chapter 6, verse 19 about don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasure in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves don't break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Um, yeah, just this. What am I valuing? What am I wanting in this life? And I think, like, when we think about in terms of success, it's a temptation for people in the world and also in the church as well, kind of like how you just mentioned, Chris. And we have to ask ourselves, like, what does God say is the most important thing? Storing up things here on earth, whether it's money, possessions, wealth, beauty, um, like recognition, even. Hey, we had the most kids at kids camp, or we, had the highest number on Easter morning. It's like those things on the surface they sound fine, but if that's what you find your success in and find your value in, it's like this. What about the days where there's two people?
Mhm.
You think about Jesus telling the story about giving, and people were in the temple giving these exuberant amounts of gold and being like, "Oh, look at me, I'm super wealthy and I'm able to give all this." And then you had the widow who gave like two mites, or I believe it's like just two coins, and that's all she had. And Jesus is like, look at that, like she's found her value in something that's more than just material gain. She's found her value in me, and that's what I want. It was so funny because being here on mission, especially in New England, we get asked this question, like, what do you think is success? Like, what do you think is like the measure of success, or what it means to be successful? And what it boils down to is it's not number of years, or it's not number of like how many people you can convert, how many people you can say you get baptized. Even it's, are you being faithful? Are you doing the thing
Yeah.
that Jesus has called you to do? And even when it's great, and even when it's great, or when it's just it sucks, like, are you continually getting up every single day and saying, I'm doing it. I'm going to continue doing the thing, because that's what God's after, is not storing up materials and numerical, tangible, whatever you want to call it, on earth, but faithfully following Him.
Mm-hmm. Storing up faith, if you will, right? You said something too, both of you actually, that made me kind of think that I feel like God almost tries to teach all of us this lesson when it comes to us chasing success. At least for me, a lot of things that I've worked hard to achieve, while I've really been able to, enjoy those successes and have had the opportunity to have good jobs and, a house and a wife and a good family. But then there's the things that, you achieve them and you sit with them for a minute and you kind of still feel that emptiness. Like, okay, I'm here, but I'm still not happy with this. And I truly think that is God's way of showing us that the measure of success here on earth, and the things that we use to measure success, and the things that we work toward that are not what He wants us to work toward, aren't going to bring us that happiness and that joy that we're pursuing, the same way that, having that faith that you're talking about, Evan, that just immense faith that just pushes beyond any boundaries that we create for ourselves, right?
No, I don't know. It's hard. I think this is where the rub of the road meets. As a human being, when you see success, I mean, what verb did I just use there? You see success. Success is, I mean, you see it. If you can't see it, how do you know it's there? How do you know that some of these people are some of the most listened to artists in the world? You see the number of streams on Spotify. How do you know that this is one of the best-selling games of all time? You see how many copies it sold. If you want to think about God's idea of success, he says, don't look for it here. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. We're not there. We're not going to get to see it. So God's idea of success is literally telling us, I think, to hold on. Hold on. We can be successful on this earth by being faithful to him and to others, by living a life of humility, of service. We talked through Mark chapter 10, in verse 43, it says, on the contrary, whoever wants to become great among you will be your servant. I don't think there's a single person who would count themselves successful on this earth that would say the way I became great is because I put myself lower than others. Right? Taylor Swift didn't become great by putting all of her worth and value underneath somebody. There came a point where her songs, whatever, it rose to the top and she said, I'm here. She didn't just say, oh, well, somebody's better, But you come back to this verse, whoever wants to become great will be your servant, will be a servant. That is a position of humility. That is a position of saying, I'm in fact not great. I'm just here because I know what I'm here to do. I'm here to serve the Lord. And even Jesus, you skip down to verse 45, even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And that's what people expected of him. People expected this to be the king, the ruler, he's in charge. We subject and submit to him because he just saved us from the Roman Empire, right? But instead, you find him a 33-year-old man washing the feet of other men.
Yeah.
He could have had it all. And all he had to do was speak a word and say, I'm successful. Here's what it looks like. But he put himself lower than that.
But it's funny because he did, right? Like he said, this is what success is. Serve. Be faithful. I think this is funny because Easter was just last week, and we were talking about how like Jesus' walk all the way up into the cross, and how at one point he said, God, if there's any other way for me to not take this cup that you're giving me, make it happen. But at the same time, not my will, but yours. So he served the Father, he served the people. And the measure of success was that he was faithful all the way to the cross, and then even more so faithful to rise again from the dead, like he said he was going to do. And I think so many times we just get caught up with, well, success means that I'm going to be happy. I'm going to get the thing that I want. I'm going to see the results that I'm working towards, and they're going to be in the positive, not in the negative. I think, we were talking about personal stories. Over this last year, I had somebody that I was meeting with regularly up here, and this person claimed to be a Christian, and we were meeting constantly and sharing life together, going to coffee, hanging out with each other's families and whatnot. And then one day he just came up and said, hey, I'm not into Jesus anymore. I'm converting into Islam. And it was in that moment that I felt failure. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is, I spent all this time cultivating this relationship, seeing this person come to know Jesus as their savior, walking with them for a specific period of time. And then they came up and said, hey, I'm out, And in that moment, it was so easy for me personally just to feel, well, I failed. That's not just failure, but despair in that failure. Like it was all for nothing. Because this person made a different decision. And that's one of our, I'm telling all this because I remember talking to you guys, and the whole point of this three chords, these doing life together, is I was broken up about that. And the encouragement, I think, Aaron, both of you guys did, gave me was, you didn't fail. Failure is packing up and going home. and saying I'm out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not what God's called us to do, but rather to find success in faithfulness,
Yeah.
of saying, I'm going to get up the next day and I'm going to keep doing the thing that God's called me to do, whether that's specifically, you know, giving the gospel to people, or being a faithful husband, or a good father, or a good person in your line of work, a hard worker, you know, just being faithful. And in that, you have success, but not like in a way that the world would define, but
Mm-hmm.
that Christ sees you as being somebody who's doing it, who's doing the thing, you know.
And that's what leads right back to the title of our episode. We're completely turning our idea of success upside down, which is right side up in the eyes of the Lord. But the way that our society measures success is, you know, at the fault of all of us, really. But, you know, we are all victims of it as well. And it's a really beautiful thing to say that success in the eyes of God are very simple things when you break it down. It's faithfulness, it's discipleship, it's love, it's, you know, that perseverance through those tough times like you talk about in your, you know, your personal life, Evan. And we like overcomplicate it. We, you know, mix it all up with all the things in this world, and God tells us it's really not that hard if you really break it down and just read the word. But
Yeah. We're talking about what's our idea of success. You know, maybe we need to recalibrate how we define success. Maybe somebody here needs to do that. Here's the fun part as a believer. Our success is not the success we should focus on. We really shouldn't. Our perspective needs to be that if we want to see success as believers, if we want to be successful in our lives as believers, we need to look at what God's doing. We need to look at God's success, more or less, really. We need to be looking at what his numbers are. And I'm not saying numbers like tangibly, but the measure of success comes from what God has stated to us. You know, in the scripture, you have very prominent church leaders: Paul, Apollos, Barnabas, all of what's going on there in the middle of Paul's missionary journeys. He's teaching and preaching, and he's very quick to say, it doesn't matter how many people I save. It's not me saving. It's Jesus doing the saving. And he uses the phrase, you know, you say, Paul planted the seed, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase.
Yeah.
Mm.
When we look at the measure of success, God's giving the increase, right? I had there was a conversation that went around, and I don't remember if this is at a conference or something like that, but it was a conversation that went around where we were talking about like what defines success. And the easy church thing to say is to say, well, success is not defined by the numbers, right? Because we look at churches in brackets of, well, this is a mega church, therefore it must be successful. Oh, well, this is a really small country church, so it must not be that successful if it's not growing in numbers. And the conversation turned quickly to, yeah, it's not about the numbers, you know? But man, you got to have a story to back that up, right? I love in our situation, just where we're at in our church. Are we growing by the number? Yes, we are. Like, we're at the point where, and you know, it's hard. I don't focus on the numbers. But being there just for a year, we've gotten to the point where it's like, oh yeah, I mean, this is feeling kind of full. And this last Easter was a little uncomfy because it was tight. And now we're talking, okay, do we need to add more chairs? Do we need to go to 2 services? What do we got to do? Because we're almost out of space. The typical answer is to say, wow, we're a successful church because our numbers are growing. I find no satisfaction in that whatsoever. That's a number. Where I see God's success is when one person gets up there to share a testimony of faith as they're being baptized and say, 6 months ago, you would have seen me in a drunken stupor dealing with tarot cards because that's all I felt I had left in this world.
yeah.
But here I am with all my bottles thrown away, all my cards in the trash, saying, I have nothing left but to follow after Christ.
Amen.
That's success. And that's one person.
Yep.
You know? Ooh,
No,
the goosebumps get you.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. We're our church, we've been going on for like almost 5 years now, and we just got to the point where we have 50 members, and we love it because it's small, everybody knows everybody, that sort of thing. But it's also, we love it because a lot of different reasons. Obviously, like, we love seeing people in the community, in the culture of New England, coming to know Christ. It's not just like people like me coming from North Carolina and transplanting my life. We're seeing the residents do that. But what we see is like the success in is that, just like you said, Aaron, these people are saying, I used to be like this and now I'm like this. Those same people who, 4 years ago, who were just defined by anyone else as being the lowest of the low, poverty, unsuccessful, everything, now to a point where they're like giving testimonies or leading like a woman's Bible study or praying in front of people at church, or like going and visiting, doing like a hospital visit for another member who's not doing well. Like, we see God shaping the lives of the church, and it's this growth that is not in numbers, but in people growing in their faith and growing in their faithfulness. And so when we think about this, I think about, how do we recalibrate or redefine our definition of success? What are like the practical things we do tomorrow? And I like saying it like that. What's something you can do tonight? What's something you can do tomorrow that just gets you to that place? Is, yeah, we begin with God's definition of what is success. Focus on faithfulness, not am I busy doing something, or am I seeing number go up? Am I being faithful?
Yep.
And whatever that means, right? Like reading the word, being in community, talking to God, doing I know I keep saying doing the thing, but that's all I can think of to say is like doing the thing that God's asked you to do. Go into the world and preach the gospel, make disciples. Like, are you doing that? Am I faithful in doing that? Because that's what God cares about.
I think maybe someone listening to this may think, well, I don't know what my thing is. And that's okay. We aren't supposed to necessarily know right away. But an important step in learning what that thing is to pray about it. I mean, because God will put the right people in your life, the right opportunities. You just have to be willing and open to receiving those. Continually praying about that will help you work toward doing the thing, as my good friend Evan says. And when we were preparing for this, I came across the phrase that you both can see as well, since we have show notes that help us so we stay on track.
We do.
I love the point that just says obedience over results. Again, we are all so driven by results. I mean, it's there's results in everything. I mean, results of tests, results of games, results of social media followers, or, results of arrays. That we're just so focused by whatever that end product is of whatever we're working on, that we're not always focused on just being obedient, because that's what the Lord wants us to do.
If I can go on a silly tangent, it's like you just said the word game. It's like if you're sitting there playing a game and you get a game over. What is that? You just pack up the controller and the disc and say, I'm not going to do it anymore. Like, that'd be silly. I paid money for that game, or like I'm invested into this thing, so I'm going to hit the reset and I'm going to get after it. I'm going to, moving away from that analogy into what is faithfulness. Like, I'm going to go to God and say, God, help me. What do I do today? How do I go about this today? Show me in your word. Bring people in my life to show me in your word. What does it mean to walk in faithfulness day by day? Because if we're focusing on, like, if we get too focused on results, guy walks away from it, from Christianity. that's a bad result. It's a
Mhm.
hard result.
Mhm.
You just throw in the towel? Like, no. That's just not, I mean, that's not how God wants us to operate, is by obedience over results. Yeah, just reflecting on that and thinking on that. Like, I think we would all we would all come up with that, maybe. I think it's harder to do in practice because we are so numbers driven, and seeing like the good things happen, or the successful, like, and that defines what we think about success. But man, it is just faithfulness.
Mhm.
It is just faithfulness, and asking God to put people in your life to encourage you in that faithfulness.
Yeah, and I mean faithfulness drives some action. Chris, we want to connect with people who may feel like, okay, this is all a great concept of success, but what does that look like for me right now? I don't know how I can do that. When we talk about obedience to the Lord and faithfulness to the Lord and just doing what we believe He's called us to do, that just requires some action. What does that look like right in your immediate context? What can you do tomorrow? Like you just said, Evan, it just is a matter of trying something. You feel like you've got a gift, try something, share it with somebody. You have a church context that you can fit that in, do that. If you've got in your workplace, you connect with somebody on that same activity or that same sort of thing, bring that back to, hey, here's something that we both know and love and do on the side. Come at it from now as a believer. What do you think about God when it comes to this, that, or the other? You just got to get out and try and do something. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, but
Michael Scott, right?
My version of that is you make 100% of the shots you don't miss. Yeah,
I like it.
that's right.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, Aaron.
Yeah. but in reality, faithfulness and obedience comes with simple action. And you don't have to think it just comes inside of, well, what's my church doing on its calendar? Bring it into your family, bring it to your friends, bring it to somebody who, may not even deal with the whole churchy Christiany thing, but you just connect with each other.
Yeah.
You don't know what the result could bring. And like you said, could be just watering, seeds that somebody else already planted. You could be planting the seed. We don't know. I know this is an older statistic, but I think Barna had a statistic that it was like, if you're talking strictly sharing the gospel with somebody coming into a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, it takes a person on average 7 times to hear it and process it for someone to actually believe it.
Mm-hmm.
What if you're number 6 on that list? What if you're number 7? What if you're number 1? You got to be somebody in there. You've got to do something in there.
Yeah.
So as we think of God's success being us being obedient to Him and faithful in the way that we do things, helping one another, bearing one another's burdens, discipling one another, binding those 3 cords together and working towards God's goals. There's just action that's got to take place. And whatever it looks like for you out there, start on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be super spiritual. Get up in the morning,
Boom. Hit the gym.
Right. I mean,
Talk to your gym bro.
Like, go to the gym, do a run, read a book, read the word, find somebody and schedule time to talk to them. It's encouraging each other in faithfulness. Man, these are things that I really think will benefit you. Let me encourage you to do that. And then also like doing the same. Yeah. No, I think that's really great.
As we bring this around to a close and kind of wrap up this episode, man, there's some good stuff in here. I just want to challenge all of us, all of our listeners, to just think about the question, are you living for God's approval or for other people's approval? And I think that can be really convicting if you actually take time to sit and think about the different areas of your life where you may be measuring success. Feel free to think about that. If you want to leave a comment, we all have access to the comments. We'd love to see what you have to say if you want to share. But just really want to, remember and emphasize that when we have the opportunity to make it to heaven one day, because, that's our goal as Christians, we want to be able to hear those words. Well done, good and faithful servant. And I know that, Aaron really emphasized that idea of serving. I think that right there is a true measure of success.
Thank you so much for listening to the Three Chords Cast. We hope you were encouraged and that you'll join us again next time. Until then, find your people, love your people, and keep your people close. We'll see you next time.